Hello, LinkedIn, Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, and I know I'm forgetting one other platform. And of course, LinkedIn. How could I forget LinkedIn, my favorite social media platform? Today with me, I have a special guest. It's Priya Ravindhran. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And she is coming at us from the Millennium Falcon. No, wait, from her home theater somewhere in the great state of Texas. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat. I'll leave that window up. And today we're going to talk about something I historically had been very skeptical of, automated ML. When I first heard about it, I was not a believer. I thought it was just kind of hype, but then I started using it, at least in the context of Azure ML, the automated platform there, and it was spectacular. So I figured I'd have someone here who used to work for H2O, which, as I understand it, automated ML is a big chunk of what they do. So just introduce yourself, Priya.
Sure. Thank you so much. And not to sound pretentious, we're in a media room, which happens to be very common in the state of Texas. So anyway, Millennium Falcon is my mural in the back. Happy to be here. My name is Priya Ravindhran. I worked at H2O. Frank and I briefly worked together, and I've been in the AI ML space for the past 5 years. So it's really been an interesting experience to see it firsthand how the space is getting revolutionized with auto ML and AI solutions. So happy to chat about all of the above.
Awesome, awesome. And you actually have a degree in electrical engineering, which means you probably could have did all the wiring for your house in Texas, but you probably didn't.
I hired a class rabbit for that. And my dad's pretty good.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Yeah, yesterday I had my entire panel box replaced. So I was actually working off my solar, I built a solar generator, which...
For you.
Yeah,
that's I did awesome. There.
No, it's not it's like a camping based system. It can't do the whole house, but it was able to do the router and keep the laptop charged. So it's not much, but I built it myself, so I'm proud of it.
DIY projects.
I'm sorry, what?
I said DIY projects are like the biggest craze right now, especially in 2020, 2021. So
what else are you going to do? Like, can't go anywhere. You have your own movie theater, so at least in your case, you're good. But so what's your take on automated ML? Because you think it's going to take away jobs? Do you think because I think that's like the 100-pound gorilla in the room,
right?
800-pound gorilla in the room
is fear, right? I think that's ultimately what a lot of data scientists, especially the ones that I've come across, in meetings and in interviews, and just there's a lot of kind of arms crossed attitude about auto ML, and the reality is it's not going to take away jobs. So that's something I want to sort of state very clearly. It's actually a good thing for data scientists because it makes their lives easier and more efficient. It's kind of like the way we looked at Excel spreadsheet. No offense to Microsoft. I know we got some Microsoft but the spreadsheet versus SQL, right? Being able to write a SQL statement. So like the technology is innovating and getting better and better. The same people are going to be able to use that. In fact, it's going to empower a data scientist to be much more systematic and much more explorative, and what a lot of folks that I used to work with in the past like to say, fail fast to get to a solution, to a working model, to get a model into production. Typically, the average data scientist will work on a few models a year, and this way they're able to work on hundreds or thousands of models, depending on how the company or organization is structured and set up. So I think there's a lot to be gained out of auto ML, and it shouldn't be something data scientists should fear as a job killer. It will make their jobs different in the sense that the time they're spending doing a lot of the manual labor will be automated, which it should be, right? That's the part that you have to kind of wade through, but there still is going to be an importance of their domain expertise, as well as their ability to look at the data, find the signals, kind of retweak things, go back, retrain the model, and provide a much more disciplined output. And another thing I will add, sorry, I'm kind of hijacking.
No, I asked you on the live stream because I think you could kind of expand on this, and so no, go ahead.
And I like the chat comment here. It's a great way to get people into ML as well, making it much easier to get started, build a model. Yes, it definitely sets up the baseline. But and I lost my train of thought. But I think what ends up happening is they experiment a lot in the process, and they're able to collaborate. A lot of the solutions out there are offering more collaborative options, and so they're able to go into that, look at the document that's auto-generated from an AutoML, and be able to tweak it, and then they can add their nuances to that. So really, it's designed for anybody who's a junior data scientist all the way to a senior data scientist. I mean, everyone likes it once they start using it. It's just a matter of getting over the initial fear that it's going to kill their job. It will make it different. They will be much more efficient, but it's about making more jobs. And making it's more of a, more of something that people will want to get into because it's becoming easier to do work in data science.
Yeah, I mean, historically, every innovation that was feared to get rid of jobs or create a job apocalypse historically has actually the opposite's been true.
Right.
Even if your local supermarket, they have they have the automated machines that do that, but that machine has to be built, it has to be programmed, the interface has to be designed and considered and all that. So, I'm sure it does get rid of some jobs, but it also, I think, net over the long haul, will increase kind of the jobs.
I mean, there's a lot of tools in this space, right? Data science isn't operated in a silo. To kind of work together with your data architect, your data engineers, your systems folks, your business folks to get the right data, right? And then it's sort of a overall, factory line of different types of jobs. So there's a lot to do in this space, and there's a lot of tools that are making the work in this space much easier and much more efficient, but there's still people that need to man the system. So in a way, it's kind of like we're not taking away from anyone's ability to do their job and be passionate about data science. We're just making it much more efficient and much more thorough. Here's the thought that I forgot. So initially, in feature engineering is one of the capabilities of many AutoML solutions. When you do feature engineering, which is one of the, I think, most important part of the data science process, it takes a long time to get there. But when you get there, you're doing the feature engineering. It is just almost impossible to do the number of simulations that you could potentially do with a machine, right? So you can do, instead of 100 features, maybe you're getting thousands of features, and there's just, the simulation is just much more effective with a machine, just like it is with a calculator, or just like it is with SQL, to be able to generate the output that they're looking for. So
yeah, that's true. And I also think that when I was at Microsoft and I was selling kind of Microsoft makes a lot of tools. And John Wood is an awesome guy. We used to work together at Wintellect, and he has a great YouTube channel. You should definitely check it out. He basically talks about .NET ML, which is another way to get people who are more developer focused into the ML space. And I don't know, John, is there an automated ML kind of flavor or capacity to ML.NET? I wasn't sure, but I think you hit on a lot of things there. Is like, this isn't going to take away jobs. And I think, if anything, what I have seen personally is data scientists are overloaded, right? Like, if anything, they have, probably running at about 2 to 2.5 times capacity. And so there is apparently an automated ML aspect to MLnet. And John is actually going to be on a live stream next. So so maybe we can talk about that. But I mean, ultimately, where I have noticed that it sells when I was selling it for Microsoft is, there's this one customer was a utility company in Pennsylvania, kind of the Philly area. And basically you go through, they had this data set and they really didn't want to work on it. It was just somebody in the corner office had this wild hair. And I think you and I can appreciate that. And had this wild hair and they wanted to solve this problem right away. And they were already booked out 3-6 months in advance. And I just said to him, I was like, look, why don't you run automated ML on it, right? It was a classification problem, which we'll get into that next.
Yeah.
But basically it's just run it overnight, go home, have dinner,
Exactly.
play with the kids, see what it says in the morning. And that sold it right there, is that, it was just kind of like, here's an ad hoc thing. Was it a perfect model? No. Could a person do better? Yes. But that person is booked straight out for 6 months and somebody wanted it yesterday. So it really becomes this kind of this amplifying effect. And, so what types of ML problems can automated ML tackle? The Microsoft product does classification, regression, and time series. And obviously, I didn't just drink the Microsoft Kool-Aid. I swam in it. Everything. So what does the larger automated ML kind of world look like?
I think the larger automated ML world incorporates, and forgive me, I'm not a data scientist, so if I'm saying things that are incorrect or at least not wholly true, I know what I know, and there's a lot that I don't know. So, but H2O was able to solve for classification, multi-classification, time series, NLP.
Interesting.
With TensorFlow, and then now with computer vision, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that can be done with images, video, and the sky's the limit. I think we're going to start to see many more different types of technologies be able to read and consume all kinds of data. And I think the world of unsupervised learning versus supervised learning is going to just start to grow exponentially. And a lot of AutoML is still at the beginning of their journey, right? They still need business use cases to be able to drive a lot of that innovation. So you're going to be right now. I think the big movement is like moving into infrastructure, because infrastructure is where data resides, and all AutoML is only good as good as their data, right? Or the data they have access to. So I think the big movement now is how can AutoML sit in the environment with data, or where the data is being consumed or stored or live streamed, and they want to be able to get at that as fast as possible, because there's signals that you could see in that data as it's coming in. And so in terms of business use cases, I think we're still scratching the surface of what's possible. So we've worked together, and we've sat in on a lot of conversations where there's a lot of just throwing spaghetti at the wall, which is great if you have a think tank and an innovation center in an organization that does that. But I don't know that what goes into production are going to be those use cases. It's going to be something else, right? That's been tried and proven. And what you're seeing a lot with the applications of AutoML solutions or models is that they're going after older use cases. They're going after what they used to do by hand, and they're trying to train against that data or future data to see if they can improve the accuracy of that. And that's how we are starting to rely on trust in the AutoML and ML solution in the first place, right? And then it's taking that learning and then applying it to newer use cases that haven't even been explored at all, even by hand. So I think there's a lot to discover, and we'll start to see that journey in the next maybe 10 and 20 years.
No, for sure. And I think there's some economic forces at play here, right? Because whatever, compute's getting cheaper, labor's not getting cheaper. So, you mentioned throw spaghetti at a wall, and I think throwing spaghetti at a wall in the context you mentioned was something else. But I think in a lot of ways, that's kind of how automated ML works, right? Like, let's try this algorithm, combine it with this algorithm, do all your hyperparameter sweeps, just throw everything at the wall, kind of in a semi-automated or semi-automated fashion. And I think that's kind of, and then, hey, look, this model works, and this model combined with this model works, and the cool kids call those ensemble models.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest here, right? Like, if we're just talking about business, I mean, none of these things are going to see the light of day for a while, right? So there's no automation happening in anyone's workplace because of, a discovery. These are essentially science projects, and the science projects can go on forever, right? I mean, there's no limit on that. There's going to be experimentation on top of experimentation. ML is just widening the realm of what's possible, because the time that it's going to take to get at some of those science projects is going to be minimal. Now, the entire process of taking a model to production is a much more robust and nuanced process that we're going to also start to see a lot of innovation in too, but that is an entirely different process and has its own governance, as it should. So like I said, no job is going to get eliminated. There's still many more jobs generated out of this process, because there's going to be a lot of regulation on, especially depending on the industry you work in, a lot of regulation coming out of AutoML. So
no, that's true. And I think if you look at, a lot of DBAs feared the cloud for a number of years, and I know not one DBA that was put out of work. Now, are they still DBAs? No, not by title, but they're doing something else.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I call myself a technologist. Like, you never join a job, or, you don't never join the workforce in technology thinking you're going to do that one job for the rest of your career. It's just not like that. If you think that, then you're going to go obsolete very quickly. So, by essence, technology is meant to be innovative, right? So if you're going to pursue a career in technology, you have to be prepared to change your career a few times, or learn different tools, or learn different ways that industry is changing, and adapt quickly, because that is essentially what the true essence of technology is. So, people that are getting into data science, are thinking about that, studying that in school. There's a lot of innovation in technology and products and solutions out there, but expect it to change over, especially because we quite haven't figured out everything, and there's a lot more to learn. So sorry, that's my little philosophical approach.
That's your little inspirational speech. No, it's true. Like when I used to speak to high school kids, and when I as part of a Microsoft kind of volunteer thing, it's like, if you don't like continuous learning, this is an awful field. You'll do fine for about 5 years.
You don't like change. It's an awful field.
Right. No, exactly.
Just doing your own thing. Or, there's a lot of different jobs in technology. I mean, now we're kind of veering off a topic, but you can, HR person is going to be an HR person, right?
Right.
Company. So you could get into technology, but you may just have a job that's not going to change. But data science for sure is going to change. And there's just going to be many more spin-offs as a result of a lot of the innovation that's happening.
Well, that's true. I mean, you go back enough long ago, like, there was one web developer, and then it became a web development team, and then there are people focused on graphics, people focused on SEO, and then people focused on the back end stuff. Like it kind of spread like a like weeds, I guess, kind of spread out. So we have a question from Thomas Duclos. Thomas is awesome. Automating the process of applying ML end to end additionally offers the advantage of producing simpler solutions, faster time to market, and models that will often eventually outperform hand-designed models. I would mostly agree with that. I think the ML ops, I think you didn't use the term ML ops, but you were basically referring to ML ops.
Yes.
In terms of that. And that, you see this kind of, particularly as IT departments get more agile, development and operations they talk to each other twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. One was the company picnic, the other one was the holiday party. And every other time they interacted, it went poorly. But I think they realized that in order to be more agile, if you're doing one release a year, then you don't have to talk but more than once or twice a year. Right. If you're doing a release a quarter, then you have to talk a lot more frequently. In some extreme cases, you're rolling out a new version of your website daily, right? Or hourly. Like, you have to have a system and automation in place. And I do foresee the day when ML will be like that. You look at a site like Amazon, where they tweak the constantly, and they do A/B testing constantly.
Yeah.
And they have to have an automated system in place, along with a pretty well stocked and well staffed team to manage all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking. I mean, the frequency at which things get updated, I mean, that's just going to continue to, it's going to be almost virtually real time, right?
Right.
So I think, yes, I was speaking about ML ops, and I do think that that space actually has a lot of growth, right? Because I think a lot of the focus has been in the training side of the model, and then now the production side is a whole other world, right? And there's a lot that's going to be and has been produced in terms of companies that are focused on drift, or focused on model monitoring, or focused on regulation. Is this being responsible enough, right? There's
Right.
a whole concept of responsible AI, which is really exciting and interesting. I want to see how that changes with social issues and things that are happening in our court system, right? That
Right.
you start to see a lot of legalities and lawsuits, and in a good way, that's going to continue to evolve our practice of AI in a way that we can trust it, and it's not biased, if you will.
Right.
So I think there's just a lot that will come out. So yes, I agree with Thomas on the fact that it does produce faster time to market value. However, I think in the process of doing that, we're going to see a lot of errors. So it's going to take some time for all this to calibrate, and it will continue to innovate. I mean, we're going to have newer social issues, newer bugs, or newer gaps that we aren't, or blind spots that we aren't focused on. And so we'll find a way to automate that as well. And yeah, it's a really exciting time to be in this space if you like change. So.
Right, you have to like change. But I think what's interesting is kind of where the exploration into explainable AI, which is strictly speaking, I guess, is not responsible AI, but it has to play a part in that.
Yes. So explainable AI uses AI methodologies, right, to explain the model it just built. It's actually using AI to explain AI, and it's amazing how nuanced that's getting as well. And yes, it's one of the reasons, again, not to plug H2O, sure, you can thank me later, but that's one of the reasons why its AutoML solution sold very well, is because of the explainability part. Very few AutoML solutions, at least when it came out, were focused on that. And so I think it was one of the first companies that focused on explainability. And I know a lot of other companies have, caught up and, are doing much more innovation. So I think that's really fascinating, because it's telling you in layman's terms, as simple as they can, why the model chose or predicted what it did, using other AI capabilities. But in that is going to be a lot of regulation and monitoring and validation. So we're just going to start to see that part of the industry explode.
No, absolutely. What are your thoughts? Do you think there's going to be an AI winter, or do you think there's just innovation? It's just been exploded. Like, I'm just curious, because
I think every company is going to go through its own winter, right? Because
right.
It's so competitive and things are moving. I think someone told me recently there were 9,500 pre-IPO startups, and I think that was an AI ML. And
wow.
Yeah. So
it's time for a culling, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's interesting when we think about that, because a conservative mindset would say, okay, not all of these companies are going to make it, sure, but most of them will, right? Because they will all, just by virtue of competition, they will fail upward towards success. Even though one will be leading the pack, the other, out of 10, the other 8 will follow and one will fail, right? So kind of look at the overall just trajectory of AI companies. I think there will be winters for some of these companies, because the innovation is just not going to be able to keep up. In fact, some companies, they're still they're still evangelizing products that are 10 years old, right? There's been no innovation. There's maybe a little bit of pivoting toward market fit, but really the core technology hasn't changed. And you can see that with a lot of the other traditional technology companies as well. They haven't really changed their platform. They've just added features or, or spun it out as something new. So yeah, I think there will be winters. It'll just be staggered across the realm of AI companies that focus on, one aspect of the AI journey. Will there holistically be an AI winter? And I guess it depends on how you're defining winter. I'm thinking that where it just ceases to innovate completely. I doubt it. I think we're gonna see a hockey stick sort of growth. I think we're gonna start to see consolidation and things like that, which is very typical. What happened in the database industry,
Right.
Well,
that's true.
Or BI in general, like a lot of BI companies just started to just get consolidated. So we'll start to see a lot of that. I mean, it's very typical, but I think, the umbrella of AI is so broad, right? There's machine learning as one part of it, and then you have, robotics, and you have this, and you have that. So it'll just continue to snowball. Is my opinion. It's not.
Well, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that there may not be the pace of innovation that we've seen with something like BERT or not BERT, GPT-3, GPT-4, just because the raw amount of compute, I think they are hitting real practical things. But but who knows? I mean, maybe there'll be some innovation. I read something that implied that there's a whole new way to process BERT models and things like that, which, for those of you watching at home, if you don't know what a BERT model is, it's not Sesame Street related. It's a very computationally intensive way to train up a network of networks, neural networks, basically, to do NLP. Yeah, so I think that's interesting. So yeah, I think the future still looks bright. It may not be quite what we expect, but that's why it's.
Yeah, you always have to stay fresh, and you and I were talking, and I'm not a data scientist, but I've downloaded a few courses on Python. I'm like, I think it's just a good back pocket skill to have. If you're not in the space of that, like, I think you should just be in it. And I think there's a lot of things you can learn, and if anybody that's new kind of entering the space, especially from an education academic perspective, definitely do a few internships at a variety of different that offer different aspects of AI, right? Like you may not know what your niche is, and I think the hope is that you really kind of take a good look at the different applications. There's so many good ones, and there's so many I wouldn't say bad ones. They're just status quo, or they are may not be as interesting to you. And I think there's a lot of different ways to look at AI and see the benefits of it. And in fact, a lot of the things that I enjoy reading up about is how AI is helping social change and
interesting,
helping issues such as a lot of the COVID research and diagnosis and just the operations around that using AI technology were really interesting. Human trafficking, AI is a great applicable use of that. Use of AI for helping organizations and nonprofits address some of the issues around human trafficking, cancer research. I mean, the sky's the limit. There's protecting the wildlife in Africa, right. Being able to take pictures of the different animals and trying to see which ones are the same ones. Because there's so many different images that you can compilate or put together of the same animal and make sure that animal hasn't died, or just to kind of get a sense of just the overall wellness of animals and people. Right. There's so many great use cases. There's so many things that you could bury your head in and feel like you're really changing the world in a good way. That doesn't feel like you're eliminating jobs or
right.
But if you feel that there's all these negative impacts of AI, I think there's a lot of different ways to look at the world and see how you can add value by learning Python or, whatever.
That's cool. And it's very accessible too, because, you could learn Python and you could spin up compute, without going to the store and buying an actual physical machine. You can spin up compute. And, while it may, if you want to go crazy, it will cost you money, but you could do it on a credit card. Whereas before, you would need millions of dollars to get started with any kind of research project like that or whatever.
Right.
That's interesting.
Wait,
awesome.
I'm just curious, just wanted to ask you where do you think the world is going with AI? Just wanted to get your opinion. You've had so many conversations on this topic. So
I would say it's going to track very similar to what you saw with web development, right? First it was, if you wanted a website, you had to hire a designer and you had to hire a team and you had to spend tons of money. Now you can go to Wix.com or GoDaddy or any of these domain registers, right? Oh, I want a website. Okay. I always see the ones before, is it Wix? Wix, and there's another one where they advertise in front of all the YouTube videos. Like, hey, look, I can create a website and and it's done, right? And you went from, it would take months to build out a website in the mid 90s, even into the late 90s, to where you can have an idea for a website at breakfast, have a rudimentary website up by lunchtime, and then by dinner be selling stuff. I mean, it's that fast. And I think, will AI get to that point of speed? I don't know, but 20 years from now, who knows? And I think that compute is going to get cheaper.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I mean, if you look at even just data engineering, right? You don't, whether or not you need a data warehouse is debatable, right? And we've had that debate on the show. But I mean, ultimately, if you can just grab all the data you can and then worry about how you're going to organize it and structure it later, because storage is cheap, compute is cheap, right? Labor is more expensive. So if, I'd rather be more agile and kind of get the data, all the data I need in it for any given moment, and kind of just, as I need it, build out what I need to build.
Yeah.
I think that model is going to, I think, have trickle effects throughout kind of the rest of the industry and arguably the economy and society, right? Because low skilled jobs, I think, are on the chopping block, and they have been for a while. So you can't say you're surprised at that. But I mean, in terms of, you look at the automated kiosks at McDonald's or your supermarket, the actual customer service aspect of it is also being replaced with chatbots and things like that. So I think that there's going to be a shift into higher skilled labor and more agile kind of people who are willing to learn.
Well, I'm just curious. I mean, you mentioned web developers. What do you think all the web developers from the 90s are doing now?
I mean, I think, I was one. So, my path was, I spent a lot of time writing user interface, kind of either through the web or for, I deviated into tablet-based systems and mobile apps. Unfortunately, it was Windows Mobile. But, and then into data science. For me, the appeal of data science and AI is that math is platform independent, right? So like, you could be the best Android developer in the world or the best Windows developer in the world. And if that platform, through reasons, or Silverlight developer, and if that platform, through reasons that you can't control and nothing to do with, kind of goes away, then I wouldn't say all your skills are useless, but I anecdotally, there were a lot of other Silverlight influencers or MVPs, whatever we were called, have since went in different directions, and not one of them anymore is tied to one platform. I can't think that's an accident. A lot of the folks went to open source kind of UI development frameworks. A handful went to IoT, a handful went to data. But the appeal for me is that, math is math, and whether that math algorithm is running on a server that's owned by Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, or I can't Sergey and the other guy, like, so I mean, I think for me that was a life lesson, like, larger things at play can kind of alter alter your marketability and skills. And I kind of, maybe I'm a dense learner. Like I was a Java developer for a while, and part of it was when I was living in Europe, and the platform in Europe was something called oh my God, I can't think of the name anymore. Dynamo, HTTP Dynamo.
Okay.
Was a very popular platform in Europe. When I moved back to the States, WebSphere had dominated everything.
Yeah.
And it was like I didn't like WebSphere, so then I switched. I mean, it's all about being pivot and flexible, And I think Thomas brings off, this. I am fascinated by quantum computing, and that I think will, when that'll be commercially feasible, and I think that'll happen in 10 years for sure. In some form or the other, quantum computing will be economically feasible. May not be a real quantum computer, but it'll be simulated. Simulated on conventional hardware still gives you pretty decent performance boost. But yeah, I mean, it's just I think that gets into what you had said earlier, like, just always be learning, always be curious, and growth mindset and all that.
Instead of AB, always be closing, always be learning.
That's right. That's my hashtag on that I use on Instagram.
Awesome.
Because I've been
That's
awesome. So where can folks find out more about you? You're on LinkedIn. You have creator mode on LinkedIn, so you're one of the cool kids as well.
I have yet to start my journey as a creator on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Priya Ravindhran. That's linkedin.com/Priya Ravindhran. And I'm on Twitter. I don't have a lot of opinions to share on Twitter. You can follow me, and then you can see who I like. I follow a lot of comedians, and I'd like to laugh during the day. So Priya R_AI, and that's pretty much it. You'll probably be seeing me more as
awesome.
On creator mode a little bit more.
Awesome. Do you do audiobooks or no?
I don't. Oh, you mean do I listen to audiobooks?
Do you listen to audiobooks? Not have you created?
Yeah, have I created?
That would be cool.
I'm on my -1 book. No, yes, I'm on Audible. So
okay, cool. Do you have a recommendation?
Because I've been in sales, I've really enjoyed any type of negotiation books. So it's really kind of getting into the psychology of the business as opposed to the actual technology itself. So I like Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, and I had the opportunity to work. I would say work with him. Came to an event. He did an event at a club that I was a part of in New York City, and he did some live exercises with us, and so that was really exciting. And I think the hostage negotiation tactics are great in difficult situations, and when you get to that point in sales, but probably not how you want to start. Sales. But I think it's a great way to kind of just look at any conflict in life and try to find a way around it and be much more compromising and solutions oriented, which I think is what all engineers are ultimately. You're a solution oriented person, and so that's a book that I'm reading, and I probably have a couple of other biographies and things like that, but nothing technology related. So I would love to maybe pick your brain on that at some point.
Sure. So it's hard to listen to a technology audiobook. I will say that. I've tried, and it just doesn't quite work out. I love Never Split the Difference. It was awesome.
Yes.
And Audible is a sponsor of the show. So if you go to thedatadrivenbook.com, it routes you and you'll get one free audiobook on us. And if you sign up for a membership there, which I'm so addicted to it, like it's unreal. I have like 400 something titles now. It's like I may have a problem.
It's a good problem.
Yeah, as vices go, I guess it's not that bad. But yeah.
That's great.
I'm currently listening to The Operator, which is written by Robert O'Neill, who was one of the Navy SEALs. I think the Navy SEAL who shot Osama bin Laden. And it's interesting. It's an interesting story, kind of how he ended up in the SEALs and in the Navy and stuff like that. And yeah, that's what I'm currently listening to now.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. Lately it's been a lot of self-help books.
Right.
that on live, but but
thereby hangs a tale. I remember from studying Shakespeare, which I was forced to.
I was going to say, what I love about Audible, for plugging Audible, is that I can do so many things. I used to be a huge reader when I was younger, but I feel like now it's like life's just gotten busy. So you could do so many things with Audible, and you can like blow through like 400 titles, like you said.
No, absolutely. This is I'll have to check this one out. The Story Factor. I'll have to check that one out. Actually, for some rare thing, I actually have two credits accumulated. I don't know how that happened, but it's been a crazy couple of months. Yeah, so yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out. And then I really recommend. There's a really good book. It's really not a book. It's like a seminar. It's like $2. It's not worth the credit because credits are priced around $12.
I see.
It's a really interesting book. It was by Les Brown Jr. and he was the son of Les Brown, who I think he's still alive, but interesting character. But he was a motivational speaker, and he kind of talks about a little bit about what it's like being a teenage son of a motivational speaker, and it was pretty fun. Little funny moments in there. And another book that I read or listened to a couple of years ago that I really enjoyed. It was a lot. It was like a 30-hour book. It was Titan, and it was about the rise of the Rockefeller family.
Oh, I want to read that.
That was awesome.
Reading all the, Succession is one of my favorite shows on HBO. But I like hearing about empires. I mean, the Rockefellers were an empire, really.
Right, and they talk about his early childhood and stuff like that, and you can't help but draw parallels between him and Bezos because it's like, they had a lot of things in common, and their approach to things was very much in common.
Yeah.
And that's another excellent book.
I'm telling you, it's a little bit of crazy, a little bit of, thinking way out of the box, and to learn, right? It's inspiring, but also scary. So.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I mean, what were you saying? I need more coffee. Thanks for joining me here on the live stream and showing me your really cool home theater.
Thank you.
I love the couches and stuff like that.
The red, yeah.
Really cool. The red couches and the Star Wars stuff. That's cool. Yeah. And thanks for joining. And hopefully we'll see you. I'll see you. I'll be a guest on your stream and vice versa. Yeah. But it's been awesome. It's been awesome speaking with you as well as working with you. And I'm going to roll out the fancy graphics to end the stream.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.